Hello everyone, Mr. Price here with our next edition of the Read Aloud. We are continuing Because of Mr. Terupt by Rob Boyer. We last read a couple chapters from Luke and Peter, and it involved the situation where they were counting blades of grass in the field. They were estimating the blades of grass in the field as a math assignment that Mr. Terupt had designed. And Peter threw his chunk of cardboard that was the tool they were using to measure the chunk of grass at Alexia's fanny. She was not happy, and Mr. Terupt talked to him. Today we are picking up with Jessica just after that. So Act 3, Scene 1. Things weren't going well. I had betrayed Alexia by being nice to Danielle, thinking that this was what Belle Teal would have done, and then Danielle suddenly turned on me without warning. I knew Alexia was behind it. I was alone, except for the friends I had in my books, like Belle and Anna. In November, Mr. Terupt introduced us to a book that the whole class would be reading, The Summer of the Swans, by Betsy Byers. I had never read this one or anything by Miss Byers, for that matter. This book won the Newbery Medal back in 1971, Mr. Terupt said. He held the book up. It's not full of action like you guys tend to think of action, but it is a beautifully written book that's going to give us an awful lot to think about, learn from, and maybe even change because of. I straightened up. I was excited. Peter moaned. As for Alexia, well, she was somewhere in La La Land. The boys made faces and the girls exchanged glances. Then Mr. Terupt went a step further. We're not just going to read this book, he said. We're going to do an activity with it, an ongoing activity, more like an experience. Now even Alexia was listening, back from outer space. What kind of activity? Peter demanded. Not some sort of stupid book project, I hope. I hate those. No project. I don't really like those things either, Mr. Terupt said. What did he have in mind? I wondered. You're going to make us dress up as a character, aren't you? Alexia said. Oh, I love doing that. Get real, Peter said. Will you guys be quiet and let Terupt finish? Jeffrey said. That worked. No more interruptions. And Mr. Terupt continued. I want you guys to think about this book. In the story, there's a boy with Down syndrome. That's a mental disorder. Named Charlie, and his older sister, not much older than you guys, named Sarah. They have a pretty special relationship. That's what I want all you to think about. Mr. Terupt stopped for a second, yet somehow we stayed quiet. He continued, so what you're going to do is visit our collaborative classroom downstairs over the next few weeks. You'll go in groups in the mornings and the afternoons and simply spend time with these children doing what it is that they do. Mr. Terupt, I raised my hand. What exactly is the collaborative classroom? Still being relatively new to the school, I didn't know. Peter makes a comment. I'm not going to read that right now. I don't like the word that he uses. But he makes a derogatory comment about it's a classroom where mentally challenged kids go. Alexia laughed. I hope you'll answer that question a little differently after this experience, Peter, Mr. Terupt said. His tone was very serious. Peter didn't say another word. It's a classroom for children with a range of special needs, Jessica, Mr. Terupt continued. Some of you are probably a little nervous or even scared. That's why you'll go in groups. I hope you'll feel different afterward, too. Act 3, Scene 2. My group consisted of Anna and Jeffrey. I still hadn't quite figured Jeffrey out. On the other hand, I'd been eating lunch with Anna ever since being ostracized by Alexia and her clan. Danielle was back in. I was out. But I didn't want back in. I much preferred my time with Anna. She's quiet, but she's a lot smarter than everyone thinks. She's the only girl smart enough to stay out of Alexia's nonsense. Her mom's advice, she told me. We haven't talked about her mom or any of the stuff I learned from Danielle, and I haven't told her anything about me either. For now, we've kept our secrets, and that's okay. I like Anna. She'd make a great friend to a character in a book or in one of Dad's plays. I know she's going to be a great friend of mine. We were very quiet on our first trip downstairs. Not one of us uttered a single sound. My hands longed to hold a book, but I hadn't brought one. So I bit at my fingernails and cuticles instead. It's funny how when you're anxious to get somewhere, the journey seems to take forever, and when you're not too anxious, the journey is over in no time. My journey from California lasted about as long as a ride on the Viper roller coaster, and our journey to the collaborative classroom took no time at all either. When we arrived, it was clear the teacher was expecting us. "Hi guys," she said. "Welcome to our collaborative classroom. I'm Miss Kelsey." We introduced ourselves and then she led us inside. "This is Joey." Miss Kelsey pointed to a little boy with boogers all over his face. "Can you say hi to our friends, Joey?" Miss Kelsey asked. Joey waved in our direction. A gigantic smile stretched across his face. "And this is James over here," Miss Kelsey said, pointing to a different boy. James looked pretty normal to me. He didn't say hi to us, though. He didn't even look at us. "This is Emily over here." The little girl Miss Kelsey pointed to was very cute. She had drool all over her face and hands and arms, and she moaned a lot. A different teacher used sign language as she tried to communicate with Emily. The teacher struggled to maintain eye contact with her. She told Emily to say hi. "That's Mrs. Warner helping Emily right now." Emily tried to say hi to us, but I could tell she wasn't particularly good at talking. There were a few other kids in the room, and Miss Kelsey eventually introduced us to all of them. I became distracted at this point because Jeffrey had walked over to Joey and started playing the game Memory with him. I couldn't believe it. I heard him say, "It's a great job, Joey. You're really smart." And Joey smiled. Anna and I were on our way out with Miss Kelsey and James and Emily to help them do their jobs. Before we left the room, I saw Joey giving Jeffrey a big hug. Act 3, Scene 3. Jobs turned out to be sorting the plastic forks, spoons, straws, and napkins for the cafeteria. Miss Kelsey poured the utensils on the table and James said, 712. I looked at Anna, puzzled. "What do you mean, James?" I asked. 712, he said again, looking down at the table. "Does he always say 712? I asked. I figured he was yelling out random numbers. "No, James is telling us that there are 712 utensils on the table," Miss Kelsey said. 712 utensils on the table, James repeated, this time looking at Anna and me, swaying a little as he stood. "Great job, James." Miss Kelsey sounded so excited. "You looked at our friends when you said that." "Miss Kelsey, do you mean James is right?" Anna asked. "Are there really 712? Is it the same every day or something?" "Well, I haven't actually counted them to double check, and no, it's not always 712, but James has never been wrong before," Miss Kelsey said. Anna and I exchanged astonished looks. I was confused. James had done this amazing counting, but Miss Kelsey seemed more excited that he had looked at me. I wanted to ask questions, but decided to wait. I didn't know if asking was appropriate. We finished up the jobs and walked back to get Jeffrey. Act 3, Scene 4. Jeffrey was still playing with Joey, as well as a couple of other kids now. He was helping them paint. "Jeffrey?" I said. He looked up. "We have to go back now." "Oh, okay." His shoulders slumped. He turned to the kids. "I gotta go, guys. I'll be back soon." Then it was hug time again. We thanked Miss Kelsey and headed back upstairs. We didn't talk on the way through the halls. I think we each had too many thoughts in our brains. By the time we reached our classroom, Jeffrey was grumpy Jeffrey again. Our very own Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, I thought. And we'll take a minute to read Jeffrey's chapter today too. Find out how this event went from his perspective. Peter called them the R word, and Alexia laughed, like it was funny or something. I should have just punched them then. It's a good thing they weren't in my group. I went downstairs with Jessica and Anna. They seemed a little scared, but I didn't say anything. We walked into Miss Kelsey's class and met the kids. They were great. Joey was full of love. All he wanted to do was play and hug me. He didn't get upset about anything, not even winning or losing when we played games. James was reading this big book when we first walked in. I could tell he was real smart. I figured he was autistic right away because he didn't look at us or say a word. And little Emily was so cute. She needed lots of help, but who wouldn't want to help her? They reminded me of Michael. Just like the collaborative kids, Michael had the power to make you feel really good whenever you were with him. Love poured from him. I never told anyone about Michael, and I wasn't gonna. But Jessica knew something was up. She's pretty smart. She notices things. After we visited the collaborative classroom a few times, she came up to me at recess one day. I was sitting at the edge of the field, out where no one else ever comes. I was looking through my football cards, putting them in piles by position. "You have a secret, don't you, Jeffrey?" she said to me as she sat down. "What are you talking about?" I said. "Who do you know with special needs?" I kept sorting my cards. I tried to ignore her. I wasn't going to tell her anything. Then she moved closer. "I've got a secret no one knows about too." "No one. Not anyone at this school," she said. "So why would you tell me?" I asked, looking at her this time. "I was reading this book, I to B, and in it, the girl finally talks about her secret, and it helps out." "You're always reading," I said. "The characters help me understand and think about things. They help me know what to do." "QBs? Where was that pile? Is that why you handle Alexia differently than any of the other girls?" I said. "I guess so." "Well, you can tell me your secret. I'm listening." "Can I look at some of those cards while I talk?" She reached for my running backs pile. "No!" I pushed her hand away. "Nobody ever touches my cards." She was quiet. I might have scared her a little. "Sorry," I said. "I'll just hold my book then." She was quiet for a minute. I waited and she took a big breath. "My dad didn't come to Connecticut with us," she said. "He directs plays and found a girlfriend at his work. A beautiful actress from one of his productions. My mom decided we needed to get away from California and my father, so here we are." I kept sorting my cards, but I was listening, and Jessica knew I was. After a few seconds, she kept talking. She had more to get off her chest. I didn't want to come, but my mom told me I had no choice. Boy, was I ever angry with her. Angry like I've never been before. I figured my dad was dumping her, not me, so why did I have to leave too? Silly, right? I could never live without my mom. I stayed busy with my cards because I didn't know what else to do. I didn't want to ruin it for Jessica. She had a lot to tell, so I stayed quiet. What I didn't know at the time was that my dad wasn't only dumping my mom. He was dumping me too. The last time I talked to him was back in the beginning of the school year. He phoned to talk to me, but he hasn't called since. I knew what it was like to have a parent that didn't talk to you. I had two, but I didn't know what to say, so I said nothing. Then recess ended. And that's the end of our chapters for the day. I hope you guys enjoyed them. And don't forget to fill out your exit ticket. I hope you guys have a great day. Talk to you soon. Bye.